Hello world, Nai Coach here. Alright, today I'm going to be addressing a question by Neo Magus. It's a bit meaty, it's a lot to it, so this may go a bit. It's alright, I've got my Roasterama tea and I got a little time set aside here, so let's do this. Now, he's asking some questions about metaphysics and some other things that are kind of high level stuff, and this is fun. This will be a good chance for me to practice the dialoguing I'll be doing with people in the future, where after I get data bedrock, I'm going to be approaching different people on the internet that I think look like they might be fellow seekers and see if we can't engage in some interesting conversation. So this is very interesting conversation. All right, so I've read through the post he made in the forum, and I think there's some general confusion going on that perhaps I can alleviate a bit by some general context, and then I can get into the questions he asks in particular. All right, so setting the scene, there's like three things I want to go over. The first is, in pod layer theory, there are 4 degrees of practice, of understanding, acceptance, whatever you want to call it, interest. The first degree relates to the mojo phenomenon as you can observe it. The second degree relates to things that are closely associated with it, but you cannot necessarily directly observe, or not in such a clear-cut way, such as one's unconscious genius, things to do with career bubbles, and so on. The third degree has to do with increasingly speculative things, such as the elevator of enlightenment, which is one of the things that Neo Magus asked about. So that would be third degree, and then fourth degree would be even more speculative things, such as what happens after you die, and other questions where there is the least amount of data to work with to ascertain which thoughts on the matter are more or less correct. All right. A way you might think of it, help you in your mind, is basically think of first degree as physical evidence, firm physical. Second degree is soft physical. Third degree is firm metaphysical. And fourth degree is soft metaphysical. All right. So with that there, the next thing is how you go about seeing it. The lenses. So for the first degree, which is where things are based on to start with, just like other forms of science, take for example micro and macro. With the micro kind of discoveries, you have telescopes, and you either have a telescope or you don't. You either believe in telescope or microscope usage or you don't. But if you do believe in them, and those microscopes or telescopes are in fact proper lenses, then even though it may be things that other people aren't saying, so those who don't use microscopes or don't believe in them, they're not viewing things at a microscopic level, but there are things there, and they are directly observable. They are firm physical evidence, right? If you have a microscope, they can look into a cell and it goes deeper and deeper, but it's the microscope allowing you to do that. You are in fact seeing physical evidence that is firm, directly observable evidence. In the case with the mojo phenomenon, the lens is the human being doing it, the mojo reading lens, and either you can see it or you can't based on whether or not you are properly trained enough, or whether or not you even want to exert yourself to believe such a thing can be. But if that is in place, then the mojo phenomenon is directly observable by a human lens, and thus it is firm physical evidence. What else? All right, second thing. Third thing is, if the mojo phenomenon, the first degree aspect of pod layer theory, is true, then it is the greatest discovery in the history of humans. And it is the greatest discovery in a way that overlaps both the scientific and spiritual forms of seeking that humans do. So I don't think there's much of a debate on that. The real debate is whether or not one can see the phenomenon with their lens and believe in what they're seeing. But if you actually can see it and are like, I'm seeing that, it then automatically is the greatest, most accurate breakdown of the human condition that has ever been put forward. All right, so with those things in place, let's try to answer some of his questions. All right, he starts with, here's a question that's been bugging me for some time. I have with some of the points you made in your response to Dire Magpie. All right, I don't know if I'll be able to help with this, what's bugging you. And when you talk about metaphysical questions, one must have sometimes rein in their expectations, because things get trickier as you get into the more metaphysical realm of discussion. But let's give it a go. All right, Coach, in this video, you express strong Okay, one thing here is Neomegus is making a lot of questions, and he's trying to be logical about the way he's going, and being particular, it looks like, with his wording. And there's a lot with a logical flow and with equivalencies and semantics I may need to be particular about. So I may have to go in and parse through here a bit. All right, so I'll start with the strong skepticism toward the concept of an afterlife for humans. That's actually not an accurate statement of what I said. I'm the only one who can tell you what I feel, so that is a statement about my feelings and what I have expressed as far as my feelings. That's not actually true. My skepticism is towards, this is critical, assertion levels, how high they are, and methodology. What methodology was used to make those assertions. So I'm skeptical of pretty much all the methodologies that were not able to come up with the discovery of the mojo phenomenon, yet wish to make discussions or assertions about the human condition, that their methodology and the firmness of the data that their methodology or any methodology could come up with does not correspond, is not commiserate with what they have to work with. Okay, so when it comes to the afterlife, that would be fourth degree of popular practice, so it is the most speculative area. And for me, just personally, just so you know, I am inclined to believe in some kind of afterlife. I don't know exactly what that is. So if you're asking about me personally, Thomas Chanot, actually I am personally less skeptical than probably a lot of people are. So that's important for you to understand about me. However, I believe that my belief should be categorized as a fourth degree of philosophical discourse in this subject, because it's based on soft metaphysical data, and therefore it should be asserted in that way. And those who make more assertive claims, I'm not sure how they're able to do that unless they're working with some evidence I don't have, and I believe I have all the evidence to work with, all the religions do, all the shrinks do. I have access to all that, yet they don't have access to what I have, which is ahead of them. So my skepticism is towards assertion levels that are higher than mine, working with less data with a less useful or relevant methodology. So that's where the skepticism comes from, not necessarily in general. In fact, I do that to protect myself, because, and I was trying to protect Dire Magpie, I have feelings in that direction, but I cannot validate those speculations with the firmness I can my speculations that relate to first degree evidence. And so that's important. I was trying to explain to Dire Magpie, when you talk to people, it's important that just like talk to scientists. If you talk to scientists about, discovering, suns that have, planets that orbit it in a way that might be useful in relation to how Earth is, they are way ahead of pretty much anyone else discussing that topic. Yet, if you ask them about it, their assertion level is less than you might think. And they are skeptical of assertion levels of other people talking about what planets or suns or whatever quasars are doing on the cosmos, when they're not working with strong microscope, telescope, atom cracking knowledge, knowledge of gravity that's been backed up by, terrestrial experiments here on Earth. So being skeptical of people's assertions and methodologies that are not giving that kind of data. For example, people who actually say, oh, global warming doesn't work, yada yada, and they feel firm on that. While scientists who actually know more have different opinions, yet they have less assertion confidence. And they're skeptical of high assertion confidence from people who really don't have a lot of data and whose methodology really doesn't seem to be that relevant or strong compared to other people working it. And the people who are working with the best data, though it may be fuzzy at the moment, it's still the best, most cutting edge data, so they have the best speculations based on the best current data. Because they're actually in the mix of it, they're telling people, like, you really can't be that assertive. Now, if you ask them, do you believe that there are these planets out here or not, they'll have a belief. They have a belief on that. And a lot of times they may believe more in more, universes, in more dimensions, in more extraterrestrial life. They may have those beliefs, but they will couch it in a degree of skepticism that is higher than most people who, ironically, don't have the same kind of training, don't have the same kind of access to the cutting edge data, soft and fuzzy though it may be. All right, so that's the first part there. That statement actually positioned me in a way that it does not reflect actually my philosophical bent. What you were seeing as skepticism towards the concept is actually a cautiousness towards discussion of the concept. Different. All right. Yet you have consistently asserted that souls exist in humans along with a whole host of other unprovable, according to empirical materialistic criteria, properties associated with souls and other incorporeal phenomena, things that include, but not limited to, other spirit forms, autonomous entities, enlightenment elevator, etc. All right. So let's parse this here a bit, break it down. A whole host of other unprovable. That's a very firm wording on a situation that I don't think such a firm wording is appropriate for. Also, there is a difference, and it seems like you're kind of combining the two here in this word. One, that's a very hard use of the word unprovable, and I believe you've also embedded in there, possibly, the word unassertable. First of all, unprovable and unassertable are two different things. And unprovable based on what? On first degree criteria or fourth degree criteria? They're different. So, for example, let's take, for example, my unconscious genius, Nexi. Now, you may say that that is unprovable. I would disagree. By first degree criteria, you could say it's unprovable because you cannot directly observe it, right? Okay, and I would agree to that. I would agree to that degree of unprovable, but there are degrees of unprovable. Now, there's a softer thing, which is the second degree. My unconscious genius, does it exist? Well, there are two things that would say it does, which would count as, coins on the pile of provable. Doesn't mean the pile is big enough to equal hard provable, but that doesn't mean that it is lacking in provability. All right, so the first is the fact that things like one's unconscious genius is related to how the human design works, and we are able to directly observe part of the human design, at least directly, first degree. The physiological cues, you can see the four conscious powers a person has. That's a thing. From that, you can make speculations based on it, and if those speculations, for example, what is going on in the unconscious genius, and if those are incorrect, they can be disproved by the fact that they don't line up with what is actually going on in the observable first degree stuff. Okay, so that's one thing. So granted, you're not seeing it directly, but that's like saying, in a way, people who are hunting for the planets, out in deep space, they use the method where they look for the wobble of the sun. So, under provable, what do you call provable? Are you saying provable is you have to be able to directly, with a Hubble telescope or whatever, observe those planets? Okay, by that criteria, which is a first degree criteria, that is firm physical evidence criteria, direct observation, no, it doesn't. There's a lot of science and billions of dollars of money being put into that research and things banking on that. Why? Because there is some provability, which is that the suns are wobbling. That is an effect you can see being caused by what you believe to be the planet. You're not observing it directly, but you're seeing what you believe to be its effect on something else. Okay, so that's a softer degree of provability than directly observing it with a Hubble telescope, but it's not unprovable. There wouldn't be tons of scientists researching it. There would not be tons of scientists saying that the scientists that thought that up and are using it are cutting edge badasses. There would not be all the money invested, all the time invested, all the books written about that if a lot of extremely intelligent people didn't think that that was some degree of provability. So, important note there, I think it very much relates to what we're going on here. Another aspect of provability is the fact that when I talk to my unconscious genius, I get answers to problems other people can't solve. If you accept the mojo phenomenon is real, and that's up to you if you've actually done enough training to see that it's going on there, but if you can see it, then it is beyond anything anyone else has done in the history of humans relating to understanding the human condition. So that's a feat. That's a point of provability. It's not firm because we're guessing that that feat is related, but it's there and it's repeatable, such as I am improving my understanding of this phenomenon by talking to my unconscious genius. Now, granted, you could say, well, maybe it's something else. Maybe it's voices in your head. Maybe it's transmissions from an outer space aliens. Maybe I'm just in a simulation. Maybe it's brainwashing I got when I was, in some sort of think tank that I have forgotten about. And now it's like being brought up from my unconscious. Sure. All those things are possible. But there is on the board a phenomenon that is being tracked and understood, and that understanding is being improved on through this dialogue to the unconscious genius. So that is proof of something, which is more than anyone else has. No one else is able to see the phenomenon at this level yet that Pod there is doing, or to improve on their understanding. So the burden now actually is on everyone else to explain why they're behind the curve. My explanation is I'm talking to my unconscious genius, putting me at a higher peaking level, and therefore I'm able to understand these things better. One can disagree with that, but the onus is on them. The onus is on them, for example, to explain to those scientists why they're seeing those suns wobble when suns don't normally wobble. That's a thing. Is it something else? Maybe like, Odin's out there fucking around with the suns or whatnot. Maybe, you know what I mean? Maybe Ra's having a party. Who knows? However, the onus is not on those scientists. It is to keep being more assertive, but they're making an assertion of those suns are moving based on, through mathematics, seems the most likely answer is that a planet nearby is causing the sun to wobble. Now, someone else had to come up with a better explanation, and that better explanation will have to have better ability to predict things and to make things make sense in a mathematical, logical structure. So far, no. That has not been done, so they have the highest degree of provability, although that degree is still speculative, thus second degree. So, does that make sense? So you can have speculation and still be cutting edge with the strongest reasons for asserting, and everyone else has to explain away what you have or come with their own model that can outperform that theory of whether or not those planets are or are not out there, whether or not the mojo phenomenon does or does not exist and operates in the way that I'm saying it does or not. All right. Continuing. My question here is, do you actually believe such things exist in a provable way? I.e., they are more than just figments of your own imagination. And if indeed you think they do you think it's a consistent position to use empiricist skepticism to call into question metaphysical claims like the existence of an afterlife and deities, while at the same time giving the existence of other non-quantifiable phenomena that fall under the spiritual umbrella a free pass according to that same skeptical criteria? Okay, quite a lot to unpack there, and there are several things in there that kind of have to be broken down. Okay, first of all, do you believe that such things exist in a provable way? Yes, I do. But that doesn't mean that it is provable in my lifetime or in 1,000 lifetimes. For example, are there planets that these planet hunter scientists believe that they have found out in the cosmos? Are they provable? Yeah. If we can get ourselves to live long enough to get spaceships to go out there far enough, then we can look with cameras directly and say yes or no. That's a long way off. So no, that won't be happening probably anytime soon. So for the longest period of time, we'll have to use other methods of determining whether or not, livable planets are out in space. So yes, it is provable. How and when, who knows? All right. And if indeed you think they do you think it's a consistent position to use empiricist skepticism to call into question metaphysical claims? Yeah, definitely. This goes back to the 4 degrees of the pod layer practice. So skepticism is built in. That's what those 4 degrees. Since we can directly observe the mojo phenomenon, that has the least skepticism to it while using empiricism. The second degree, that is less certain, thus I am more skeptical, but I still believe it is following empirical standards. I'm curious, do you believe that it is not an empirical standard what the planet hunters are using? When they actually say they are discovering planets based on the wobble of a sun, is that not empirical because they're not directly observing it? I'm curious what your take on that is. What else? And then things like the existence of the afterlife and deities. Yeah, because that's why I put the elevator of enlightenment as third degree, because my speculations, my own. I am more skeptical of my own speculations in that, as far as it being empirical, be proven. That's why I put it there. And then fourth degree, like what happens after you die? No one knows. I don't know. I have ideas, but those are based on things that are not firm data. And so thus they are fourth degree. They're fourth degree based on empirical standards. So I don't see a problem there at all. All right. While at the same time giving the existence of other non-quantifiable phenomena that fall under the spiritual umbrella a free pass according to the same skeptical criteria. I don't agree to that term free pass. I'm not sure where that's coming from. Okay, let's take it like the free pass here. Okay, well, first of all, like I mentioned, if I have 4 degrees, I mean, this is basic logic, 4 degrees of assertion level, 4 degrees of, empirical versus speculative. So that can't be a free pass because there's 4 grades. So automatically there's 4 valuations of assertion level, 4 degrees of increasing skepticism. That by definition cannot be a free pass. Check my logic on that one, but I don't know how, in a very simple logical formula, how that would work out. That doesn't make sense to me. Next, if those who've been following me know that I frequently question my sanity. I ask my spirits when they give me these insights, I'm like, am I insane? Now, there are a lot of people out there who pray, and they're told that, they're drinking this wine, it's actually blood of Christ. They're taught that they're going to have another lifetime as a butterfly or a unicorn or whatever, and they don't seem to question it that much. I, on the other hand, am working at a demonstrably first degree, empirical, demonstrably higher level understanding the human condition than anyone else. That's just a fact. And with that said, I question my spirits constantly, am I insane? And they come back with me, if we were insane, then the mojo phenomenon, your discovery, at some point would just evaporate. Your delusion would just go away, or your delusion would not allow you to continue making progress because the delusion would implode on itself. But it doesn't. I keep getting better. I keep getting better insights. I'm understanding the mojo phenomenon more. I am a greater and greater scientist every day. I'm a bigger and bigger deal in history books every day because of this. But I constantly ask, am I insane? And my spirits have to prove to me through demonstrable feats at first degree empirical level that no, I'm seeing something that is supremely important and at a higher level than anyone else and a higher level than I had the day before. So no, they pat me in the head. You're not insane. You're smarter than you were yesterday. And thus, that alleviates my skepticism of my own spirits day by day. So I don't know how I'm giving a free pass compared to anyone else out there when they have their speculations and you go, cool, I don't. I get things from my spirits and I'm like, that sounds pretty wild. I don't know if people believe that. Maybe you're just putting me on some crazy road. Prove to me we're not crazy. And they do with the first degree over and over and over and over again. So again, that does not seem like a free pass to me. If you can point out to me, please, because I pride myself on not being a free pass person. I don't give a free pass to anything. Not to myself, not to my spirits, not to any other thinker. If you got something, prove it to me. However, the planet hunting thing sounds pretty solid. I don't need to see the planets directly to say that I think those planet hunters are onto something. But that's not me giving them a free pass just because I didn't see the planets directly. I asked for explanation. I asked for the explanations other people have. their explanations seem a lot stronger. Predictions they make based on that seem better. So, not a free pass. I asked for something, I was given it, I weighed it, and then I moved accordingly. What else? Also free pass is you take spirit forms like third, fourth degree. That's based on things that are in second and first degree that are solid. So it's not a free pass. There has been payment made forward by the earlier, more directly observable things. So, for example, like again, use the planet hunter thing. One of the reasons why I give credit to that, even though I can't directly observe the planets, is the people who are using that methodology to find it are basing that methodology on other scientific methodologies that are super solid. Understandings of waves, understandings of light, understandings of gravity, understandings of chemical composition, all these kinds of things that are more directly observable. They would fall under first degree criteria. That's the kind of thing they are stacking their speculation of those hidden planets on. It's not in a void. So same thing here. I'm not giving a free pass to my spirits. If you just pray to your spirits just cause, that's a free pass. If you're actually basing it on the mojo phenomenon, which gives you insight to your unconscious, which gives you insight to what your spiritual dialogues are like, which gives you insight to what may or may not happen to your soul after you die, it's getting more and more speculative, but it's stacked on something. In fact, humbly speaking, it's stacked on the greatest data relevant to such inquiries that there is. So it is the opposite of a free pass. It is speculation based on the best relevant data. So my speculations are based on relevant data. So do you consider speculations free passes? What about speculations done based on best data? Is that a free pass? Because I don't think it is. Nor is it a free pass for spirits to give me insights, and I demand validation in real world feats to prove to me that I'm not getting just crazy shit. And then again, the fact that I divided up Podler theory into 4 degrees. 4 degrees representing 4 degrees of speculation confidence. So I'm curious to say there, but the word free pass, a bit dismissive based on those 3 things. So I'm not sure if you were unaware of those 3 things, you forgot those 3 things, or you don't think those 3 things I just mentioned are relevant. I'm quite curious. All right. Can a soul or spirit be measured and quantified? Yes. Just like those planets out there can be done, just like the other dimensions that we may or may not have in our existence. If they exist, they can be measured. I'm a naturalist in that way. I'm a materialist in that way. If there is an afterlife, it can be measured. If there are aliens out there, or us in the future, where we actually have our soul or whatever it is move our physical body, it's still something. It's still enacting itself somewhere, which yes means they can be measured. When? Who knows? Maybe never for humans. I don't know. But at like a raw base conceptual level, like a premise, yeah, I believe that a soul or spirit can be measured. In fact, it needs to be measured in order to make assertions about it. All right. So I guess we can kind of take it from the point of view of, again, the 4 degrees. If you look at the soul, really the soul occupies all 4 degrees. First degree, you could say that's like the conscious awareness of your soul, the conscious awareness of your Tao, whatever you want to call it. The second degree is what is your unconscious complement that fulfills that. That would also relate to what a soul is. Then the elevated enlightenment. How does one go up and down that and so forth? Does it even exist? So on and so forth. Okay, that's part of the soul. And then 4th degree, what happens to your soul when you die? All right, so all of that would count. 1st degree, definitely you can measure it. Hence why all the other models are going to have to become Podler. All of them. Monotheism, Buddhism, all of them. Paganism, every single one, or you're going to look foolish. Because the 1st degree is human qualia that you can directly observe, and that is clearly the foundation of what you are. So that can be quantified. Are you a Naiji? Are you not? Another model. Do you know there's such a thing as Naiji? Do you not know that? If you do know that, how do you determine what it is? Okay, if you can't see it or you do it wrong, then you have You have measured the soul incorrectly. There's a whole lot to the soul. We haven't got a second, third, or fourth degree, but first degree, yeah, you can measure that. That's empirical. You can measure that. And some people have it and some people don't. They know what's going on. Some don't. Next, the second degree, it's more fuzzy, just like those planets that are making the suns wobble. It's harder to measure that. And technically, you're measuring the wobble of the sun and not the actual, circumference of the planet itself. But still, that's a measurement. And third degree, fourth degree, things get fuzzier still. They get grayer still, a less certainty still. But yes, it can be measured. Now you get into the third degree, say the elevator of enlightenment. I call it metaphysical, but firm metaphysical. Firm because although unlike life after death, which no one has any real data on, there is data on the elevator of enlightenment. There's thousands and millions of scholars throughout history who have done meditative practices. You can look at some things that Sam Harris has investigated in these works. Actually, really Joseph Campbell's Monomyth touches on it as well, and lots of other ones. That there are some kind of universal methodology going on when people go inside themselves and attempt to figure out spiritual, existential stuff. Because it's based on all these individual experiences, it is thus subjective. That subjectiveness is why I put it into the metaphysical realm. I make it firm, though, because people are going into their own head, their own dreams, their own, quasi-states, their own fugue states, whatever they feel they are, their own prayer states, and they're having these experiences, and then the different people can then talk about them, and that's fuzzy because there's a lot of individuation in that. There's a lot of, different takes on the same thing, right? There's a lot of people holding an elephant by the ear versus holding it by the tail versus holding it by the toe. Right. But if you actually hear enough of those stories through enough of history, there are some things that are repeating, like the Bardo system, the Buddhist, some of them do, the Tibetans. It's off in some ways, but there is something to it, just like the chakra system, a bunch of other things. There's a reason why they come up that way with people who do these meditative practices, because there is some kind of base hardware we have for the process. What that is, no one really knows exactly yet. How does it work? No one really knows exactly yet. What's the purpose of it in everything? No one knows yet, but it's a thing. So it's grayer, but I would say it still counts. For example, since so many people from around the world from different time eras have done meditative practices and come back with this universal love thing and expanded consciousness and you're not you looking at you and you go back inside you, these kinds of things, certain bread and butter meditative stuff. You study these things, you'll know what I'm talking about. Almost all these practices from different parts of the world, Druids on one side over here doing Celtic stuff, versus people over here, the same things tend to happen. Native American Indians doing the peyote things. There are certain things that when they go in, the visions and so forth, they are colored by their local environment, but there are similarities. So certain guesses can be made on that. It's speculative, but I wouldn't say that it's lacking entirely. There is something going on, and it's fuzzier. Now, as far as my assertion level, I feel that it should be stronger than others because what I believe the elevator enlightenment is based on what one's unconscious is, which is based on what one's consciousness is, their conscious understanding, which makes sense. You're stacking on firm data and doing speculations from there. As compared to generally when you're talking about the soul, people are just sort of like there's normal life and then there's the soul. If you're doing it that way, then no, you can't measure it. In fact, I think that's why people like it sometimes. You can just say it is whatever it is. But if you start breaking down human qualia, no, it starts to get a bit more mathematical, a bit more forensic, a bit more rigid in what it is or is not. Even the unconscious. Lots of people study the unconscious, and a lot of these higher theories actually agree with Podlair in some ways, but still they're doing it not based off of knowing how the conscious aspect of humans works, not the level that Podlair does. So speculations are naturally going to be more askew. But yes, I believe it can be measured. First degree, easier to measure. As degrees get higher, it gets harder to measure. But no, if it exists, it can be measured. All right, next. How can two people agree on the same operative definition of what a spirit form is and is not? Simple. Based on evidence. So, for one thing, we just have to accept that when it comes to the fourth degree, for example, like what happens after you die, we may never agree. Which is why I made it fourth degree, because you don't need to agree. In fact, trying to force an agreement on something that we may never have the evidence for is a fool's errand. But it's also incorrect to say that it is not possible to be done. That is also an error. So in the first degree, if we're talking about a person being a Naiji, then that is a part of their spirit, a part of their soul that we can actually observe, and then some people are observing it correctly or not. If you don't see it, then you're wrong. If you do see it, then you are correct. Myself, if I get the answer right or wrong, my spirit shows me, the data shows me, it's either right or it's wrong, so that can very much be measured. And after that, it just becomes fuzzier to measure, but there's no cliff of unmeasurability that one just falls off. All right, let's see. Last here. Doesn't this just succumb to the same problem we've had with typology models? No, that's to me a logical non-starter. I'm not even sure what you're going for there. Okay, there's two ways I can answer that, and the answer would be no either way. So I can address that in the first degree, or I can address that in all 4 degrees. So in the first degree, no, typology is conjecture. It's based on conjecture, so it does not meet any kind of forensic criteria, any kind of empirical standard. No, it doesn't. Podler does. We are directly observing the mojo phenomenon. So first degree of what a person's innate energetic preferences are, there's no comparison. One is an observable methodology, one is a conjecture methodology. All right, so then this is why it's confusing me here, because typology really doesn't even get into the spiritual discussion, but if that's what you're trying to go with there, then no. Typology really doesn't tend to get into the second, third, and fourth degrees that much. Definitely not the third and fourth that much. You don't hear a lot of typologists, using typology to figure out what the spiritual experience is or what is life after death. Usually if they do that, they veer off into like archetype land or something. But typology itself does not address that. And for what it does address, what's it going to stack on, right? Your understanding of life after death is probably based on your understanding of archetype, your understanding of overall archetypes, and based on your personal unconscious archetypes, and then that's based on your innate energetic preferences. Well, their innate energetic preferences, typology first degree is based on conjecture. So their second degree is stacked on conjecture. Third degree is stacked on conjecture of conjecture. Fourth degree is stacked on speculation of conjecture. That's what you have, conjecture and speculation of conjecture. With Podler, no. First degree is empirical, is directly observable. So second degree is speculation based on observable evidence. That can be verified to some degree. Third degree is speculation on speculation that can be more easily verified based on evidence that can be observed. Fourth degree, which I am skeptical of anyone knowing that, but still, my spirits are telling me what happens after life after death. My spirits are telling me what is going on with the elevator of enlightenment. But that's the same thing as telling me what's going on with the unconscious genius, which is the same thing as telling me about this empirical data that is observable and is the greatest discovery in the history of humans and is light years beyond anyone else. So the analogies really don't make sense at all. First degree, it's conjecture versus observing. And then second, third, and fourth degrees is speculation of conjecture versus speculation based on good evidence. So I don't see the connection there at all. Anything else? I think kind of got here some notes here, so I missed anything. Let's see. Yeah, I think I got it all. Oh, cool. Yep. All right. So if you have any more questions, feel free to ask. But these are good questions to ask, and I understand because when you talk these heavy things, it comes down to one's deepest held beliefs, and you really don't want to feel foolish on that, and I don't want anyone else to feel foolish. So actually, my talking to Dire Magpie was simply trying to communicate some of the ways of thinking I've used to get to the ahead of the curve position that I'm in. I am ahead of the curve. Podler research is ahead of the curve. Anyone who's talking about the human condition, our breakthrough on first degree clearly puts us ahead of everything. And then that therefore puts second, third, and fourth degree above everything. While at the same time, I'm saying that my assertion levels for second, third, and fourth degree are lower than many other people, and I don't know why that could possibly be, seeing as their assertions are clearly based on less relevant data to the human condition. So I hope that clears up some. Please ask me more questions. I enjoy this kind of dialogue. Yeah, cool. So I'll talk to y'all later. Let me know if you have further questions.